just returned from Florida, where I attended a work conference. I was actually glad to have something to do so I could get out of accompanying Jack to Universal Studio Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights event for the first time. So in today's episode, I'm happy to let Jack tell us all about it. This is a Halloween event geared towards adults and teenagers that features stage blood and theater gore. So if you're easily turned off by such things, you have been warned.
I have been told repeatedly that Universal's Halloween Horror Nights is the best scary theme park Halloween event ever. I will be the judge of that today. HHN is a separate ticket event. The Universal Studios Orlando theme park closes to day guests at 5 p.m. on days when the event takes place. Halloween Horror Nights starts at 6 p.m. But if you're already in the park when it closes to day guests, and you have a ticket to HHN, you can hang out, corralled with the other guests, in one of the Stay and Scream areas, and get into the houses before the doors even open to guests who only have a Halloween Horror Nights ticket. You can either buy a daytime regular admission ticket and then a Halloween Horror Nights ticket, or you can do what I did. I bought a Halloween Horror Nights ticket, which starts at $79.99, along with the Scare Early ticket for an additional $35. That Scare Early ticket allowed me to get into the park at 3 p.m. to enjoy the park from 3 to 5, and then wait in the Stay and Scream area for the nighttime event to begin. Since I was there early, I ended up being able to go through the first haunted house and get in line for the second haunted house before they even opened the gates to most of the HHN guests at 6 p.m. From 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., I pre-gamed by going to check out the Horror Makeup Show. This long-running show opened the day the theme park did in June of 1990. The lobby to get into the show is a museum exhibit featuring artifacts from Universal's horror movies over the years. And it even has a display about Halloween Horror Nights history. The Horror Makeup Show lasts about 25 minutes and demonstrates how horror effects were once accomplished using props and makeup, with a little bit added about the CGI effects used today. If you're looking for a serious history, though, this isn't really it, as it's mostly played for laughs. There is some audience participation, as well as a video montage of Universal horror movies. Next up, I stopped by the Tribute Store. This store changes according to the season, and it's currently a Halloween Horror Nights store. But it isn't just a store, it's a highly themed attraction in and of itself. This year's HHN Tribute Store is decorated to look like a dark ride. And not a slick Disney World dark ride, but like an old-time county fair haunted dark ride. It opens with the ride operator station. And then you're in the first room of the store. Inside this room you can find all sorts of HHN merchandise, including t-shirts and scented candles and drinking glasses. One section has a lot of Lil Boo merchandise. Even though she's never been to the event, Alice is aware of this unofficial mascot of HHN. This little baby pumpkin is the only thing anyone could consider cute about Halloween Horror Nights. As you go around the corner, there's a giant pumpkin figure in the center of the room, who is not Lil Boo. As you walk through the store's different rooms, you see there are dark ride tracks on the floor because, again, the store is themed to you riding through this area on the dark ride. There's a room themed to Hollow Hills Cemetery. It has merchandise related to some of the Universal horror movies. It also has some cheap animatronics, as you would expect to see in an old haunted dark ride. The next room has a lot of merchandise for old school Universal monsters. And perhaps just as important, it has a lot of Halloween treats for purchase as well. The Tribute Store closes with sections themed to the Hollow Hills Halloween Festival, which is important to note because the largest scare zone during HHN is located right outside the Tribute Store, and that zone takes place in a town called Hollow Hills at their Halloween Festival. So more on that in a bit. Around 4:45 p.m., I was ushered into a Stay and Scream zone. There were several zones you could wait in, and you could choose which one you wanted to wait in based on which haunted houses were nearby. As I waited in line, I checked out the map to form a plan. I did notice I had already broke the one advertised rule of HHN, which was never go alone. We'll start with the 5 outdoor scare zones. The first was right as you enter the park. It was called the Horrors of Halloween. In this front section, the spirit of Halloween, known as the Pumpkin Lord, will summon monsters from all the other scare zones to frighten people as they enter the park. Next came Sweet Revenge. The backstory here is that a kid whose parents were poisoned grew up and got revenge on the town of Hollow Hills when he started his own candy company, whose products turned kids at the town's Halloween festival into killers. The next scare zone was called Conjure the Dark. At the first Halloween, a witch summons monsters together from other dimensions to wreak havoc on mankind. Then came Graveyard, Deadly Unrest. On All Hallows Eve, the long dead are awakened at a cemetery, and they plan to bring you back into the grave with them. By the way, if you're enjoying our visit to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Orlando, please subscribe if you haven't already, and click the like button. It will help our channel grow, and we appreciate it. The last of the 5 scare zones is Scarecrow, Cursed Soil. Scarecrows came to life at an abandoned farm to seek revenge. Revenge for what? Unclear. The event also included 2 shows. The first was Halloween Nightmare Fuel Wildfire. This show featured aerial acrobats, dancers, and lots of pyro. The performers are very talented, and they did some amazing things. But this is not really a family-friendly show. There was lots of twerking and a couple of occasions where a female dancer mounted a man lying on the stage, where a couple thin layers of clothes were the only thing keeping it from turning into full-on scrumping. This year's version of the annual Lagoon Show is called Ghoulish. Scenes of skeletons and monsters coming out of the grave were projected onto water fountains in the lagoon, set to spooky music. Before I let you know what I thought about the haunted houses, here's a look at some of the food booths available at Halloween Horror Nights. There were a lot of Halloween-themed treats throughout the parks, as well as Halloween-themed adult beverages. We're showing you some of the booths here. They were all well-themed to the event. We're also showing you some of the menus to give you an idea of what was available. You can pause on the menus if you want to check out the details. One of the booths was an outdoor bar themed to The Weeknd, a singer-songwriter who we'll talk about more in a moment. The only food I tried during the event was over in the Kid Zone area. I was told I had to try the pizza fries as it was a classic staple of HHN snacks. These are crinkle-cut fries topped with marinara, mozzarella cheese, pepperoni, and Italian sausage. And they were delicious. An order of pizza fries costs $11.99. I also paid $16 for a refillable mug featuring classic monsters. The mugs could be refilled for free throughout the night at Coke Freestyle machines, which even had some special HHN flavored soda in addition to the usual beverages offered. I wasn't allowed to film the haunted houses, but I will discuss the ones I got to see briefly. The first one I lined up for during Stay and Scream was the Universal Monsters house, Legends Collide. It's Dracula versus the Mummy versus the Wolfman in a battle to see who can get possession of an amulet to break the curse that has been put on them. I loved this house. The second one I went to was right next door. It was After Hours Nightmare, featuring the music of The Weeknd. I was familiar with The Weeknd and his music, but wasn't really sure what any of that had to do with Halloween. I've since watched some of his music videos on YouTube, and can see how some of the imagery of his videos are well suited to a haunted house. This one was well done, and of course The Weeknd's music was blaring at you throughout the house. Next was Bugs Eaten Alive. This might have been the scariest of the houses I experienced because it really played on people's actual fears of a real-life thing, bugs. They even found ways to make it feel like bugs were crawling on you at some points in the house. There were not any real bugs, of course, but it was creepy and fun. Next was Descendants of Destruction. I didn't know anything about this one going in, but it took place in a set that looked like the subway tunnels of New York, and I was surprised by how good this one actually was. There was one house based on the original Halloween movie from 1978, so there were lots of scare actors wearing Michael Myers masks, getting stabby in this house. And then it was after 1 a.m., and due to long lines, I hadn't gotten to see all of the houses, so I decided the last one I would go to was The Horrors of Blumhouse. I had watched the two movies this house was based on, Freaky and Black Phone, and they did a pretty good job of creating scenes inspired by those two movies. The first half of the house was based on Freaky, a horror spin on the famous film Freaky Friday, and the second half of the house was based on Black Phone, a supernatural tale about a boy who gets kidnapped. I didn't have time to get to the other houses due to the long lines, which were about 2 hours at some points in the night. So I missed what I hear is the best house, Dead Man's Pier, which was set in a New England fishing village. I wish I had time to get to all of the houses. You might want to buy Express Pass to not have to wait in the full line, so you can get to all 10 houses if you're only going to experience the event one night. I went on a weeknight at the end of September, and it was still pretty crowded.
So is Halloween Horror Nights the best scary theme park event?
It is definitely the best I have ever been to, and the reason is they have a lot more of a budget for this event than the smaller theme parks we have been to for Halloween events in the past. Universal is, of course, owned by a company with experience making actual movie sets and props and costumes. Everything looked more real. Most of the houses really seem to have a story with a beginning, middle, and end, as opposed to some of the haunted houses we've been to elsewhere, where it was just scenes that seemed remotely related to a central theme, but didn't communicate much of an actual story. And my favorite part of HHN was that there were houses based on actual intellectual properties that people are familiar with, like the Universal Monsters, or Michael Myers, or the Blumhouse movies. Many of the houses were based on original stories that Universal came up with as well, but it was cool to feel like you were in scenes from well-known movies, which is something Universal parks do really well all year round. So I would say it is the best, but I would also say at the end of the day, it's the same exact type of entertainment you'll see at any haunted house. People wearing costumes, hiding behind a corner, and jumping out at you. So if you can't make it to Universal this year, you can have similar fun on much less of a budget at a haunted house near you.
So do you think I would have liked HHN?
You probably would have hated it, but you would have enjoyed the pizza fries.
Click the link at the end to check out our review of Howl-O-Scream at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, or our tour of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Orlando. I'm Alice.
And I'm Jack.
Be sure to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so we can see you the next time we're traveling through.